Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Norma Juarez, and I work in the Alumni Relations Office. Thank you all so much for being here today for the Alumni Career Panel, Business in a Virtual World. We are honored to be hosting such an amazing group of alumni professionals, which they are giving their time to provide wonderful career insight and UNC experience. But before we get started, I would like to share a couple of housekeeping items with you all. This event is being recorded and will be available on demand in the next couple of days on the alumni website. You can find the alumni website and the panelists' contact information in the chat section in the event. So make sure that you open that if you want to have access to that. Without further ado, please help me welcome our panelists. And panelists, can I please have you introduce yourself by stating your name, your title, your company, and your UNC degree, and a little bit about yourself. And Casey, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Thank you. I'm Casey Dolan. I'm a senior manager with Deloitte & Touche. So I work in our audit practice and do both public and private company audits, as well as we've kind of expanded our roles more recently to be more of an advisor for certain clients as well from a non-audit perspective. So kind of do both audits and technical accounting advice. I graduated in 2010, and an interesting fact about me is I actually just moved back to Denver from Connecticut. So I'm happy to be back in Denver and excited that I can participate in UNC events this year again, because I really missed, I used to come up a lot for recruiting events. So happy to be back.
Thank you. Abby?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abby Pfeiffer, and I graduated from UNC in 1988, a long time ago. I currently own my own HR consulting practice. I started my own business in 2017 after almost 30 years of corporate HR experience. And in terms of interesting facts, I don't know, I'm a proud mom of two daughters who are in their early 20s. So I get to talk with them a lot about how to market themselves. And so to me, that's a treat. So I'm glad to be here with all of you this evening.
Thank you. Rodolfo?
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Good afternoon. Name is Rudy Robles. I went to UNC, graduated in 2012 with a degree in finance. Currently, I work as a role as an account executive over at Spectrum Technologies in El Paso, Texas. So fancy way to say that I do sales. You know, I work with businesses, I go out, I prospect, and I pretty much just try to find new logos, new accounts for the company that I work for, and just manage relationships with my current clients. I also have my own business, which I do private ATM placements, and also some digital marketing that I do on the side as well through that company of mine. But happy and excited to be with you guys on this call.
Thank you. Maya?
Hey guys, what's up? I graduated last year in May, so fresh out of college. It's been kind of a whirlwind graduating since the middle of the pandemic kind of hit and everything went to, pardon my French, shit. But I'm glad to be here. I now work for Madwire. I'm an onboarding specialist, and our role is kind of merging. We're going to be onboarding managers here in about a month, so in the middle of some training currently. But I'm really excited to get to chat with you guys about some tips and tricks in the virtual world. It's definitely been interesting to get used to. So ready to dive in.
Thank you, Maya. And now I'm going to hand it over to Taylor, who will be our moderator this afternoon. Taylor?
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Taylor Bulk. I'm the Professional Experience and Work-Based Learning Coordinator here in the Montford College of Business. This is our first event to kick off our career week. Don't forget about some other upcoming ones. We've got Meet the Firms, Networking Night, and the Job Internship and Graduate Fair coming up later this week. But for now, we're going to dive in and get to know our alumni a little bit more. So to start off, I've got a question for everyone. How did your UNC experience help you launch into your career and arrive at your current position? Casey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so it's funny because you just mentioned Meet the Firms. So for me, when I went to UNC, I started as a general business major and I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. And I took some accounting classes and I really enjoyed accounting. And I decided to switch over to be an accounting major. And that just so happened to be 1 week before Meet the Firms. And luckily I had a good friend who told me about Meet the Firms and said, hey, I know you just switched, but you might want to just get a resume pulled together and show up and just kind of get your name out there and get some practice talking to these firms. So I did that about a week before Meet the Firms. I showed up with my freshly printed resume and turned it in to everyone I possibly could. And out of that, I got a ton of interviews, got some great experience interviewing. And ultimately, I landed an internship with Deloitte for that summer. And the rest is kind of history. I've been with Deloitte now for, if you count my internship, 11 years, and have really enjoyed everything I've done. And it really does truly all go back to that Meet the Firms and that kind of the opportunity that UNC gave me to really network with all of those firms and kind of figure out, what I was interested in and where I wanted to go. So I would highly recommend that you go to any and all of those events that you're able to, even if you feel like, you're not really ready for it yet. I mean, I certainly didn't feel like I was ready to be applying for jobs. I had been an accounting major for 24 hours when I heard about Meet the Firms. But go there, it's great practice, it's great networking, and you really kind of start to see what's out there and what you're interested in.
Thank you. And we will hand it over to Abby.
Okay, so my story is a little different. Back in the 80s, we didn't really do a whole lot with regard to career fairs at the time. And when I first started at UNC, what it did for me, especially freshman year when you had to take all those general ed classes, it really helped provide good clarity on my path. I was undeclared going into UNC, had no idea really what I wanted to do from a degree program standpoint. And I think taking all of those general ed classes as a freshman helped me to really narrow down the options. So end of freshman year, it was between being an education major, because I absolutely loved my second grade teacher and I love to learn, as well as business. I loved business because it had a lot of variety in terms of the various disciplines. And so obviously I took the business path and ended up graduating with a degree in management and marketing. And, when I left UNC with a degree in business, it really helped me land my first opportunity in human resources. It was the foot in the door with the company I started with, and it was the business degree from UNC that got me an interview there, which I'm eternally grateful. I've been now in HR for over 30 years. And so that's kind of my story.
Thank you, Abby. Rudy?
Yes, so my experience with UNC was also very different. I'm a first generation college student. So when I was going to school, I kind of didn't know what I was getting myself into. That first semester was very eye-opening for sure. I graduated from high school with some good grades. So when I started in college, I thought that I had it all figured out. I thought I was gonna just kind of go through it, and just not really struggle. But I quickly found out that wasn't the case. But I quickly got involved with the different resources that were available in school. Decided to pursue finance over marketing, just thought it was a better fit. Going to UNC just really opened my eyes to all the opportunities that are out there, and just talking to the different people and just even the professors themselves. I was the kind of student that would always kind of stay after class and take a deeper dive on whatever topic we were learning. And it just, I don't know, once I finished school, it really opened up my eyes to how much I actually enjoyed being in school, just being around those types of conversations and being able to have that kind of dialogue. Once you make it into the real world, not everybody's interested to talk about economics or, just all the theories that you learn about in class. It's not something that they really find, interesting, but it just really opened my eyes to all the things that I had learned. I guess, my advice to students is just take advantage of it. Once you finish school, you think that what you know is common knowledge, but it really isn't. You received an education in something that's specialized. So when you step out of this college atmosphere and go into the real world, just know that what you know is not common knowledge. It's something that is special. It's something that not everybody has out there. So just know that you have an advantage once you get that bachelor's degree or even something further if you decide to pursue a master's. And kind of how Casey said, just take advantage of the different programs that are in school. I wish that I would have done more during my time in school in regards to programs. I was a little busy working full time and different things that I did back in the day, but just if you have that time, just participate in all the networking events, all the leadership, programs that you can. It's only going to pay dividends in the future.
Thanks, Rudy. And Maya.
So I actually contemplated being an accounting major my freshman year, Casey. So I was right there with you. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do, but I ended up sticking with marketing. Internships. That's all I have to say. I've done probably 4 or 5 between my freshman and senior year of college, which isn't required, by the way. You don't have to do that many, but I definitely recommend getting that real life experience, because once you hit the ground running in the real world, that's exactly what they're looking for. A degree is definitely helpful, but they're also looking for that real life experience. I actually ended up graduating May 2020, and I worked at Target for a few months. 3 a.m. shifts are not it. I don't recommend doing it, but you got to do what you got to do to make it. So I was still applying to other jobs, and I actually ended up landing this Madwire position because of a required event from the business school. You have to attend a career job fair, I believe it was, and I did not want to go. I was working at the UNC admissions office at the time, and I was like, I'd much rather be working, but I ended up attending the fair and got to chat with one of the human resources people at Madwire, and they ended up being my ticket into the door when I reapplied. I actually applied to Madwire twice. So definitely, if you want something, don't give up after you apply once. If you still want it, apply again and again until you get it. And definitely LinkedIn. I hate saying that LinkedIn was helpful, but it definitely is. So make sure that you're posting and making those connections, whether that's virtually like today, or in person when the pandemic has figured itself out.
Thank you, Maya. And I see we've got our first Q&A question. You'll notice you've got a little Q&A button. At any point, if you have questions for our panelists, you can pop that in there and we'll either answer it live or at the end of the chat. Our first question is from Dean Gibbs of MCB, and she wants to know, what do you wish you would have done in college? So if anyone wants to jump in with just a really brief answer on that Q&A, go for it.
I'll go ahead and answer it. Maya just said it, internships. If I could tell anybody to do anything, it's exactly what she said. The real world is asking for you guys to have experience. It's not just about having a degree. It's a great start, but if you can get that experience while you're in school and you can do it, definitely do it, because I didn't take advantage of that, and it still worked out, right? It always works out, but it would have made things a lot more simple. So internships for sure.
And I guess I'll jump in. This is Abby, and I would say that I would have loved to have studied abroad for a semester. I feel like from an HR standpoint, it would have given me some really good global perspective, and to see my oldest daughter be able to experience that through her college life, that was one thing I wish I could have done differently.
Okay, I was going to second that motion because I didn't study abroad when I had the chance, and I am so regretting it. So I second that motion right there.
I'll third it.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Internships and study abroads. All right, we're moving on to our next question here. Many companies have moved to remote or hybrid operations in the past year. How has this impacted your job, and do you foresee this as a lasting impact? I'm going to hand this one over to Casey first.
Yeah, so in my line of work, so in public company audits, we are typically in one large room together. Sometimes it's not so large, And, we're all kind of working around a conference table, and there's, real-time feedback back and forth, and we're talking and we're figuring out the answers. In March of this past year, March 15th, actually, so about a month from today, we went remote, and we have been remote ever since. And we don't know when we're gonna not be remote. So we did this entire year's worth of audits remotely. And it was a challenge, especially at first, because of the nature of our business is so, you don't think of accountants being social, but it's a very social business. And we're working together, and it's a team dynamic. And when you take that away, a lot of us really struggled with the personal aspect of work. No one really signs up to be accounting because they love debits and credits, right? And no one stays in public accounting because they love debits and credits. They stay in it because of the people, and because we really enjoy working together. And so we did struggle for a while. The work was fine. We got the work done. That's not a big deal. It was more the personal aspect of it. And so, what I especially have really tried to do with my teams is try to, create more of a personal connection when we are talking. So, we do a lot of Zoom calls every day. And as part of those Zoom calls, the first few minutes, I try to intentionally not focus on work, but really try to talk through, how's your life? What's going on in your life? Did your kid get to go to school yesterday, or did they have to stay home because of whatever? And so I've really found that we just have to be more intentional with getting to know people on a personal level, to kind of try to replace that personal connection. And it's no replacement for being together in person. And I do know that my staff especially are still struggling with that, but definitely just trying to be intentional with making a connection.
Thank you. And Abby, how about you?
Well, certainly from a human resources perspective, it is about the people, and it's about interacting and having that face-to-face and interaction, whether it be in the hallway or in conference rooms. And I think it got even more complicated for me because I'm a consultant. So I had a variety of clients when everything started shutting down, and each client was really taking a different approach depending on whether or not they were an essential employer or whether they had the opportunity to go fully remote. So part of my challenge from an HR consultant standpoint was really keeping up with each of the clients in terms of how they decided to move their workforce and change the way their workforce did business. And so it kind of speaks to and I think this goes across all of the different disciplines, how important it is to be adaptable. And it was definitely difficult, kind of end of February into March, as all of the different companies started reacting differently to the pandemic. Now, I'm pleased to say that even some of my clients that are pretty paper focused, in person, not as much automation, they proved their resiliency, and they set up the kind of automation that really helped ensure that they were able to kind of keep the wheels on the bus and keep their workforce employed. And so that was all very encouraging. I think the other thing I would say is with regard to going remote, I do think that it is harder to stay connected, as Casey mentioned. And so as a consultant, it's really my, doing the Zoom calls, being on video as much as possible. I think so many people kind of don't necessarily participate via video. And I think that's a critical part of just staying connected with the clients that I support and their employees. And I do think that at some point we will get back to a little bit more normalcy, is what I'm predicting. I don't think we'll ever get back to everyone being in the office full-time 100%. I think we're going to see a lot of companies really shift gears and really reassess how much brick and mortar they need to invest every month from an expense standpoint. And just from a lot of the HR studies that are starting to go out there, I think there are a lot of people who really like the flexibility of not only being in the office some of the time, but also working remotely some of the time. So I do think that this environment is here to stay to a certain degree, but I really do hope that we will be able to have more in-person opportunities, hopefully by the middle of this year, fingers crossed.
So we are seeing a lot more remote and virtual nature of roles. If you could give one piece of advice to students and recent graduates who are currently job searching or onboarding remotely, what would that piece of advice be? I'm going to hand it over to Maya to start.
Okay, so I actually did my training in office, which I was very fortunate to be able to do for my position, which is really funny because my position is all about doing Zoom meetings basically all day. So that's kind of ironic. But I would say as far as advice goes, make sure that when you are doing any form of job searching, whether that's, on your LinkedIn or applying, make the effort to either, set up an in-person chat. You don't have to go get coffee anymore with that person. You can literally have a 5-minute phone call or a 5-minute Zoom. It's just as effective as grabbing a 5-minute coffee with them and getting to know them. So, being on LinkedIn and making those connections. You can always say, hey, if you're free for like 5 minutes, let's do a quick Zoom. I have some really awesome questions for you. I'd recommend reaching out virtually, which is something that we can now do and is a little bit more common now. And then other than that, onboarding remotely, get a whiteboard or get a very large notepad. That is the only way I stay organized, other than the fact that my desk is covered in sticky notes. I know that's not what my company would tell you to do, so I'll tell you what they said. Utilize your Google Calendar if you use Gmail. It is a lifesaver. Block scheduling. I never knew how effective block scheduling would be, but use that for your Google Calendar, and that's a great way to stay organized, especially if you're job hunting or doing onboarding remotely with all of those tasks that you have to complete. And that is all the advice I have for that one.
All right, thank you, Maya. Rudy, what advice do you have for students on that one?
What I would tell everybody is to kind of get used to it. I do know that at some point we will go back to some normal standards at work, but we're not going to know how that's going to happen, right, for the near future. So just get used to it. Try to train yourself as much as possible. I know that a lot of students now are taking classes online, so they're already kind of used to the format. But as far as job searching and as far as doing any kind of onboarding, just make sure that it's very important that you put yourself in a position that you can be as efficient as you can. So if you're anything like me, when you're working from home, it's very easy for you to get distracted. It's very easy for you to kind of just tell yourself that you can do it later, or that you can multitask, or that you can just have the TV on in the background. It's going to be up to you how much you really want to get accomplished, and the better you are at controlling your behaviors and your habits, the more likely you are to succeed, especially once things go to normal. You can just kind of prepare yourself as best as you can. So organize yourself, use calendars, use tasks, become familiar with different technologies that are available, but it really all comes back to you. And I'm sorry if there was a lot of background noise.
And Casey, piece of advice for students job searching and onboarding remotely.
I'd say as far as job searching, I don't know that my advice really changes between, the COVID environment versus the pre-COVID environment. I personally think your network is your biggest asset when you're going through the job search. Whether that's your network of students that my network of students is what got me to meet the firms. If I didn't have a friend that told me to go, I wouldn't be here today. So it's your network of your fellow students. It's your network that you'll meet of external individuals from the school, whether that's through one of these networking events, whether it's through the business school has a lot of fraternities that you can get involved in that are great. I was in Beta Alpha Psi, I was in Beta Gamma Sigma. I was in, I can't remember the other one now, but get involved as you can, and expand your network both internally and externally. because ultimately those are going to be the relationships that are going to help you, find a position. And even further down the road, let's say you find a position, straight out of UNC, that's great. But, keep in contact, keep those connections, because you never know when you're going to be looking for something. Or, in my role now, I'm looking to sell business. And, a lot of the network that I have built both at UNC as well as throughout my career are what I'm looking for that. So I would say focus on your network. And I think Abby made a really good point earlier about the Zoom calls, like turning on the video. If you're at these networking events that the school's holding for you that are virtual, join with video. That'll, set you apart from the rest of the individuals that are not joining with video, and be proactive and ask questions. As far as onboarding, we actually just recently went through this process. Deloitte, we hire a bunch of people in the fall and winter time every year. And so our fall and winter hires just went through this onboarding process. And I would say the ones I saw that were successful were the ones that were not afraid to ask a question. And it's a lot easier to do that in person because you don't have to, specifically schedule a call or send that IM or send that email. You can just walk over and see them in person. But you're not expected to know everything. You can't be, you just started. And so we don't expect you to know that, but we also don't know what your questions are unless you ask them. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Keep copious notes, like Maya said. Because while there's no stupid questions, it does become stupid if you've asked it more than once. So, take notes, write down what you're learning, and I would say just, be proactive.
Thank you. Our next question is, how does technology and the virtual world play a role in your work? We'll start with Rudy.
Me being in sales, it plays a big role, especially I live in El Paso, Texas, and we had a little bit of an outbreak over the last couple months of the year. And so a lot of people don't have open doors right now. I can't just go out to the streets and door knock and collect business cards and expect people to meet with me. So it's become very important for me to be as organized as I can be, make sure that I keep following up with my clients, use the appropriate CRM, customer relationship management, and schedule Zoom calls as much as you can. And I know that I heard this a lot when I graduated from college, but the importance of you picking up the phone and actually making a phone call goes a long way with clients. Even though we do live in a virtual world, we can send emails, text messages, we can do Zoom meetings, but sometimes just something as simple as a phone call can go a long way. Keep in touch with your prospects, with your clients. But right now with COVID, pretty much videos, Zoom meetings has become pretty common. It's a lot harder to close, that's for sure, instead of having somebody physically in front of you. But like I said, I think it's going to become the standard, especially it's an easy way for gatekeepers to kind of push off things that they really don't want to handle right in the office, but just get used to it. But I think it's here to stay.
What's interesting, Rudy, when you said that, so I'm actually finding it's easier to close sales right now if you have that existing relationship, because people don't want to go out and find a new provider, right? They want to go with someone that they are comfortable with and know. So interestingly enough, from our perspective, we've seen that in certain cases it can be actually easier if you've got that relationship.
Yeah, for sure. For existing clients, it's definitely not that big of a hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly affects for new logo clients, people that you're trying to take away from competitors. It's just another barrier that you have to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the same playing field for everybody out there, right? So the one that masters it the best is going to succeed in the long term, right? So, but yeah, get used to it.
And Abby, how does technology in the virtual world play a role in your work?
Well, since I am a consultant, I actually have a company issued laptop from every one of my clients. So I have 4 regular clients. So it really hasn't affected me a whole lot because of the fact that even though I would be on site most of the time prior to going through this pandemic, I was constantly connected because I take my client laptops with me pretty much wherever I go. And so thank goodness for laptops and thank goodness for the internet, because I think that's what has helped me to stay in business. And quite honestly, 2020 was my best year ever. And I feel badly saying that, but I feel good about it too, because companies were needing versatile resources, kind of non-traditional HR support. And I was able to really capitalize on it and add value and add benefit. But had it not been for technology and being able to stay connected like we're doing right now, it never would have been possible. So pretty critical. And the only other thing I would say, Taylor, if I could go back to the last question and interject on it. The only thing, so I'm old enough to be a mom to most of the students on this site today. And I would just say when you're talking about job searching, just don't get lazy. You know, I think our environment of working virtually and remotely has so many pluses to it in terms of just being more casual, not having to dress up. And I would say when you're job searching, you really want to put your best foot forward, even in this virtual world. And even if it's from the waist up, you know, dress up, look professional, look interested. And I think that in and of itself helps give people self-confidence if they're not used to having to sell themselves and having to market the skills and abilities they bring to the table. So I think that's pretty important, even in the virtual world that we're in right now. And, you know, doing that preparation and really making sure that you're ready to be as well prepared as possible, I think is the best thing that you could be doing to be able to market yourself when you don't have the benefit of being face-to-face with a prospective employer. So put some effort into it.
So I'm definitely seeing a pattern across these answers of how important it is to market yourself and to network and to make connections. So that leads really nicely into our next question here. How did you build your network, and what tips do you have for students on how to build their network? I'll hand it over to Maya first.
Okay, my boss is probably one of my most favorite inspirational people currently. And he told me when I was going through the onboarding process, as well as just the hiring process in general, he said one of the main things that you can do when networking, when meeting people, when going to interviews is this: being interested makes you interesting. So the fact, like Abby said, the fact that you're showing that you're interested in someone else or the things that they do, maybe not even just work related or career related, ask them about their personal life. If you see something on their LinkedIn page that you're like, that's kind of cool, I want to know more about that, ask them about it. Like, just like Casey said, ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions when you are making those connections, because the fact that you're showing interest in someone else, they're like, me special? Oh, now I need to know about you because you care about me. So definitely show that you're interested, get to know them, build that bridge. And then other than that, tip-wise for building your network, don't be afraid to reach across the aisle, even if it's to someone that's maybe a higher or lower position than you're at, or if you want to get to know someone in a completely different company, always reach out to them. Definitely exiting the comfort zone is one of my biggest beliefs. Don't be afraid to put that step out there, especially now more than ever, since you don't necessarily get that same face-to-face interaction with a lot of people. So reach across the aisle as often as you can.
Thanks, Maya. Rudy?
You know, it's about just kind of pushing yourself to, you know, step away from your comfort zone, right? You can easily just stay at home or stay with your own group of people that you just focus and kind of spend time with. But if you really want to push yourself to grow and really learn some new skills that are going to make you valuable in the marketplace, you have to seek them out, right? Not only can you do mentoring, I recommend mentoring to anybody that's out there. So find somebody that's an expert in the field that you want to work in, or has the role that you want to have, or just something that you are interested in, right? I did that with social media. Social media is something that I do with one of my businesses. I do a lot of digital marketing. So I reached out to some people that were leaders in that field. I learned the skills that they gave me, and they allowed me to expand my network to people that they work with, right? Instagram is a great way for you to find people that you want to work with if you want to use digital marketing. Don't be afraid to send them a DM, send them a message, and just engage with the content that they're publishing. LinkedIn is huge. We live in a day that we no longer have to go in person to drop off a resume or tell them that we're in the market. Just reach out to people that are hiring for those positions. You can do a quick search. For example, for the company that I work with, is a fairly small company in El Paso. I just simply looked up people that work for the company. I added as many people as I could for that company, and eventually some people responded to this that I sent, and I ended up with the position that I have. It really is a numbers game. To send out messages, if they don't answer, it's okay. They don't have to answer. It's about what value you can add to the marketplace, right? So just be comfortable with just putting yourself out there. It's a numbers game. Don't get discouraged. And if you really put in the energy to try to find people that you want to work with, there's going to be people out there that are going to want to help you. They're going to see your passion and they'll work with you. Just keep at it. Don't get discouraged. When I barely graduated from college, I did the common mistake of thinking that all the jobs that I could only apply to, or all the networking events that I could attend, were only finance, because I graduated in finance. If there's anything that I can tell you guys, is that if you end up working in the field that you graduated from, then great. The chances are is that you're going to have to get some experience under your belt. So find the things that you're passionate about, things that you're interested in, and don't be afraid to reach out to those people and try to learn as much as you can. And whatever opens the door, life is going to take care of it. But if you don't do your part, then you're never really going to learn anything. You're just going to stay stuck in the same spot. So just put yourself out there.
The other thing I'd add just quickly as far as building your network is just being helpful to people, whether that's, internally or externally, just helping people with whatever they need. Maybe it has nothing to do with your area of expertise or whatever, but just trying to help fill a need, because people will remember that, and you'll be their go-to person for questions and any kind of help that they need. So that's kind of how I've gone about building my network, is just trying to be a resource for whatever anyone needs.
Rudy, I really liked what you said about getting experience in areas other than your degree emphasis. And that's really similar to one of the questions that we got from one of our students. Jacob asks, do you currently work in the area that your degree emphasized? And I'm going to add to that, if not, what is that area that you're working in now? And I'll hand that off to Maya to start.
Oh, wow. Okay. I just told you guys I worked at Target for a few months. Definitely not what I graduated with. I graduated with a business degree in marketing specifically. I kind of weaseled my way into the clothing section of Target. So that was kind of fun, because at least I could put a little bit more effort into like organizing and things like that, side hobbies. But again, applying to Madwire, I'm finally in a position where it's a little bit closer to marketing. My exact position isn't exactly what I imagined myself doing, but I'm definitely gaining the skills that are needed in that area, regardless if it's what I imagined what I would be doing or not.
And Rudy?
Yeah, I currently don't work in finance, but business finance can really prepare you for many things in the field. It's really how you apply it. I can have those conversations with business owners that maybe a lot of my coworkers can't have with their clients. I know how to, look at, numbers. I understand what a business is kind of trying to figure out, their business processes, financials, balance sheets, that kind of stuff. And not everybody that's working as an account executive understands that. Sometimes they're just so focused on selling one product that they forget that the business is trying to run a business overall. It's not just about just one product, right? But I don't work it directly, but anything that you learn in the school can be applied. It's just up to you how to figure out how you can do so. And it just add that value where you can.
Abby?
Well, so for me, I obviously got a management marketing degree from UNC. HR was not a discipline within the College of Business back in the day when I was going to school. So first of all, I'm thrilled to see that UNC has finally recognized human resources as a discipline within the business college. So when I graduated, though, I really kind of thought I would be able to move into like a management role of some type or marketing role. And I had very little experience, actual work experience. And so it became clear very early on that I really needed to be very open to looking for jobs that were maybe outside of the management scope in this case. And I'm so grateful I did, because I ended up getting hired for an HR assistant position. And it was starting from the very bottom. But I forget who made the point earlier with regard to just getting work experience. Getting work experience coming out of college is important. So I would say just, be open-minded and be flexible, and don't get discouraged if your first choice in terms of the job doesn't happen first. Just be flexible and adaptable. And as you start gaining more and more work experience in whatever your discipline is, good things will happen. They really will. So.
And Casey?
I studied accounting and I'm in accounting, so yes.
Awesome. We're getting lots of Q&A questions, so I'm going to prioritize some of those so that we can get some more info that the students want. We have a question that says, when you are thinking about successful interns that have been hosted at your company in the past, what skills did they possess that made them ideal for the position? And if just one or two of you want to jump in on that, that would be great.
Yeah, for me, it's communication. I think a lot of times we don't put enough emphasis on the ability to communicate. And in accounting, you just think, oh, it's numbers. It doesn't matter. I don't need to be able to communicate. I can tell you that I spend more time out of my day talking and reading and writing than I do thinking about numbers. So I would say, as an intern or as a student or a new hire, really focus on communication skills and communicating what you understand.
Okay, thanks, Casey. We have another student question. What was the most important or formative experience of your time at UNC and the Montford College of Business?
Important or informative? I would probably say staying at MCB for like hours on end in the evening time and then walking home in the cold. Definitely doing a lot of those team projects, even though I know tons of students absolutely despise team projects, making that student connection with your teammates helps build that bridge for when you are making connections in, the real adult world. So I'd say probably doing a lot of my team projects and or staying up really late studying. I loved accounting, wasn't the best. Same with finance. Loved it, was not the best at it. So I did a lot of late night, a lot of Red Bull study sessions with a lot of other students. And that was probably one of my favorite times because, obviously you hate it going into it, but by the time you're done, you have all of this knowledge that you've gained and you also made really great connections. So definitely that.
I would say it's a little different than what I think this person was actually looking for, but I would recommend for any student that is going to classes and dealing with professors and everything that a student goes through, just remember that professors are people too. They're there, they see you, they see your effort, they understand what you're going through. Don't be afraid to just spend a little bit of time with them, not just to talk about whatever courses you're taking with them, but they're also great mentors, they're great advisors. They're going to give you some crazy life lessons if you really go out of your way to really value what they have to say. they're there because they actually value education, right? They have a passion for helping students grow. So some of the best things that I remember from school is those conversations in the office and just talking about life. And to this day, I remember a lot of the conversations with some of my favorite professors, and I'm going to teach you some valuable lessons. So it's a little bit different than I'm sure what everybody else is probably thinking about his experience, but just really get to know your professors and, listen to what they got to say because they really want you to succeed.
I would say and I can't remember the name of the classes, but those classes where, it's the case study classes where you're working you're studying real life examples, you're coming up with, what you think the solution is. I think those are the ones that they really teach you how to think critically, which is what's going to be important when you graduate, whether you end up in your field of study or not. You need to be able to think critically. And so I think those classes really kind of helped form the way I can approach a question and really kind of try to work out the answer.
And I would say, I think for me, I definitely echo what Rudy said in terms of really having good out of classroom conversations with the professors. I learned so much. There was one professor, Dr. James, and he's no longer there. And he and I would talk a lot about being an entrepreneur. And I remember those conversations so vividly, especially over the last few years as I embarked on my own HR consulting practice. And it was really a lot of his teachings and some of the informal stuff he would emphasize that really helped me kind of get to that point in my career where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to put my shingle out there. And so it was, so that's pretty important. And I also think too, it helped me get an appreciation for just automation and how important it was going to be in business. I know I keep dating myself with some of my responses, but no joke. We didn't have laptops. We had to go to the computer lab, type up our papers, print them out. Times were different then, but it helped me really kind of stay focused and get going on the automation curve. And that has certainly helped me as well.
Great, thank you. We still have some student questions coming in, so I'm going to keep going with those for now. What is something that you love about your job, and what is something that you don't enjoy about your job? I'm going to try and encourage you to keep it to just a couple of sentences. One thing you love and one thing you don't enjoy about your job.
I'll start. For me, it's the people. I love the people I work with, and we spend a lot of time together and get to know each other, which is what I don't like about my job is sometimes the amount of hours that I work can be a lot. In public accounting, this time of year, you can work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and it can be challenging. But the people make it possible to do that.
I love the people as well, and the variety that consulting has brought me. I think the thing that I probably don't like as well is just not being part of a team. So when you're in the consulting world, you're not necessarily, you really have to work harder to really be on the team and considered a key member of the team. And that takes a lot longer in the consulting space than in the corporate space.
I would say I love my clients, and I also dislike my clients sometimes. So it's a give and take. Like, you get some really great clients, they're so pumped about everything, and then you get those clients that are just like, meh. So I think both for those clients, definitely.
For me, I do sales, so I'm always out and about on the road, trying to meet people. Right before this whole COVID thing, now it's a little different, but just being out on the road, having that liberty is really something I enjoy. One of the things that I dislike is that, sometimes when you work for a company, you have a lot of ideas and a lot of goals and things that you feel that would be valuable for the company, or things that you think the company should be doing. And, I'm still fairly young for a lot of people that are out in the workplace. So sometimes I got to remind myself that it takes time for you to make changes in a company, not just a big company, but also a small one. So that's something that I dislike, but I kind of overcame that by doing my own thing with my own companies. But something that I dislike is just it doesn't move as fast as I would like it to, just having that.
All right. Another student question we have here is, how can a student position their online and pandemic learning experiences as an asset when applying for jobs, or is it something they shouldn't bring up at all? And I'll have just ask one or two of you touch on this if you could.
Right now, you have a lot of time available to you guys. If you really want to learn as many skills as you can and get certifications and make yourself valuable, you can do it. It's really up to you. If you're able to show that you have that personal efficiency, that you really value your habits, that you're controlling your emotions, that you're not just sitting at home, not doing anything, or not giving 100%. Once you get into the workplace, that is going to yield some results. It's always going to be a lot easier for you to go into those interviews or for you to go into that job and say, hey, during the pandemic, not only did I get my bachelor's degree from home, but I was able to get all these different certifications and skills. It's going to pay dividends if you really want to add value to what you had to bring to the marketplace.
I think employers already realize how freaking difficult it is to do this in a virtual world, not just like your job and your career, but on top of that, students are not only learning and submitting homework and doing assignments for a bunch of classes, which is more than any job, in my opinion. You're juggling so many things and learning all of those at the same time. It's not like you're doing repetitive tasks, right? So you're consistently learning on your own time. So I think employers are going to recognize not only how hard it is just for businesses themselves to function in a pandemic, but how difficult it was for students to get through that, not only with like your workload, but also your mentality, your physical life. Like, it's all difficult. So I think regardless, bring it up. They're going to be like, you did it, fantastic. And you got some skills out of it, like Rudy said.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left here, so this is going to be our last question for our panelists. Can you provide a final word of advice for UNC Bears currently seeking a position in your industry? And I'll hand it off to Casey to start.
So in my industry, the place that most people get their jobs is from Meet the Firms. And I think I've talked about Meet the Firms, I don't know how many times, but in accounting, you get your job from Meet the Firms, unless you're going to go to a public, or sorry, we call them public companies, but like a non-accounting firm. That might come from an area other than Meet the Firms. But if you're looking at, an audit firm or an accounting firm, that's going to be from Meet the Firms. So go to Meet the Firms, go prepared, engage with the people that are there. I think you'll do great.
Abby?
Well, I'm going to direct my answer to human resources specifically. I would say do not focus on the title of the position. There are so many different titles in human resources anymore, and I think it's most important that as a graduating senior from UNC, that you start getting actual work experience. Because once you can couple a little bit of HR specific work experience with your UNC degree, your career will just take off. So I think too often we get in our heads that we want a certain title coming out of college. And so I would just say, don't focus on the title of the positions, but really look at what's needed in the position and what you would be doing on a day-to-day basis, and be open-minded. So good luck.
Rudy?
Similar to what Abby said, don't focus so much on the position that you think you deserve. It's going to happen. Some of you guys are going to apply to a bunch of jobs and not hear anything, and you will get discouraged. There's going to be moments that you're going to second guess yourself and say, why did I waste my time going to school? Whatever, right? But just know that everything that life throws at you, there's going to be a purpose for it, whether you understand it or not. Later on in life, you really are going to understand what experience, why you went through that experience. I'll give you guys a quick example. When I finished school, I wanted to work in finance and Wall Street and go after the big bucks, be like a Wolf of Wall Street kind of guy, right? that didn't work out when I moved to Chicago. It did not work like a movie at all, right? I ended up moving to Chicago, moved a couple months after that to El Paso, and over here I ended up working roles with Verizon Wireless and customer service, and then I had a team. And I remember going through it at the time. I'm like, man, I got this degree, and what was the whole point of it? And now that I'm older, and now that I'm working sales, the other side of it, I'm no longer doing customer care and I'm doing sales. Thanks to that experience that I got, I'm able to understand the different components to running a successful business. Customer care is just as important as numbers. It's just as important as accounting. It's just as important as sales. All the different components of a business are so important to the overall success of a company like Amazon, Tesla, or any of the big companies that you're thinking that you want to work for. So don't stay so focused on the position. If you get a job that you think that you're above of, just try to take the lesson that you can. And if you make it worth it, it's going to pay dividends later on. So just go out there and try to learn. You'll figure it out as you go. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
And Maya.
Rudy's definitely right with that one. I would definitely say, listen, everyone's on the struggle bus. Look to your left, look to your right, acknowledge that we're all here together, and then you keep moving. And then on top of that, I would just say, like I said earlier, being interested makes you interesting. So make sure to not only be yourself, but also, be interested in the person in front of you. It goes a long way.
Great, thank you so much, panelists. You'll notice that Norma has put some great information in the chat for us. You have the LinkedIn profiles of each of our panelists here. This is a starting point to build your network. If you feel like you don't have one yet, send these folks a message, ask the question that you didn't get to ask, let them know what you thought they said was interesting, and make that connection. You can also find this event on the alumni page. It'll be up in a couple of days. Don't forget to attend Meet the Firms, Networking Night, and the Job Internship and Graduate Fair this week for Career Week. And I'll hand it back to Norma for closing words.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, to everybody who joined us for the event. I always walk away feeling very motivated and blown away with all of the great insight and everything that I learned from the alumni. It always fills my bucket, which is one of my favorite parts of my job. So thank you all for being here, for giving your time and helping us support UNC students. To all of you who joined us, thank you so much. Have a great evening and go Bears.